My name is Zoe Martinez, I'm 26 years old, and the day I found out I had stage 3 breast cancer was the same day my family showed me exactly who they really were. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I held the power to their entire healthcare future in my hands. And when karma finally came knocking, it came with a vengeance they never saw coming. If you've ever been abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you most, only to watch them crawl back when they needed something, this story is going to hit you right in the heart. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you believe in cosmic justice, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love connecting with people who understand that sometimes the universe has perfect timing. Let me take you back to March 15, 2023. I was sitting in Dr. Patricia Chen's office, my hands trembling as she delivered news that would change everything. The mammogram results were back, and they weren't good. "Zoe, I'm afraid it's stage 3 invasive ductal carcinoma," she said gently, her voice carrying the weight of experience with these conversations. "The good news is we caught it before it spread to your lymph nodes extensively. The challenging news is that you're looking at aggressive treatment, chemotherapy, possibly radiation, and surgery." I stared at the medical images on her computer screen, those ghostly white shadows that represented the enemy growing inside my body. At 29, I thought I was invincible. I ran 5 miles every morning, ate organic everything, and hadn't missed a day of work at Morrison Healthcare Solutions in 3 years. "How long do I have to decide on treatment?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We need to start within 2 weeks, Dr. Chen replied. "Zoe, I know this is overwhelming, but you're young and strong. Your prognosis is good with proper treatment." I nodded, trying to process the information while my mind raced. Treatment meant time off work, medical bills, and most importantly, I couldn't face this alone. I needed my family. The drive home from the hospital felt like it lasted forever. I practiced the words in my head, trying to figure out how to tell my parents and my younger sister Megan that their daughter and sister had cancer. We weren't the closest family. I'd always been the independent one, the one who moved out at 18 and built my own life, but surely something like this would bring us together. I called my mom first. Patricia Martinez answered on the 3rd ring, and I could hear the television blaring in the background. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important." "Can you turn down the TV?" "What's wrong now, Zoe? You sound dramatic." Those words, "what's wrong now," should have been my first warning. To my mother, I was always being dramatic, always making mountains out of molehills. "I just came from the doctor. Mom, I have breast cancer. Stage 3. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then, "Are you sure? Did you get a second opinion?" You know how doctors like to scare people into expensive treatments. My heart sank. Not "oh my God, are you okay?" or "what can we do to help?" Instead, skepticism and conspiracy theories. "Mom, I've seen the scans. It's real. I start chemotherapy in 2 weeks, and I'm going to need help. Support. Well, you know your father's back has been acting up, and I've got my book club and the church committee. Megan's got her own life to worry about. Can't you hire someone?" Hire someone. For emotional support during cancer treatment. I was hoping maybe you could come stay with me for a few days after each chemo session, just until I get back on my feet. "Zoe, honey, you've always been so independent. You'll figure it out. You always do." The call ended with promises to talk soon and "let me know how it goes." Promises that felt as empty as my chest felt tight. I tried my father next. Frank Martinez was a man of few words, but I thought surely this would move him to action. "Dad, I have some difficult news. I've been diagnosed with breast cancer, and I'm going to need some support during treatment." "That's rough, kiddo. Your mother mentioned you called. Listen, I'm sure you'll beat this thing. You're tough, just like your old man. Dad, I'm scared. And I'm going to be really sick from the chemo. Could you maybe, you know what, Zoe? This might be exactly what you need to slow down a little. You've been working yourself to death anyway. Maybe this is the universe telling you to take a break. The universe telling me to take a break. Through cancer. My sister Megan was the worst of all. At 26, she'd always been the family princess, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. When I called her, she was at some yoga retreat in Sedona. Oh my God, Zoe, this is such bad timing. I'm really in a spiritual place right now, and I can't have negative energy around me. Cancer is just so heavy, you know? Megan, I'm your sister. I need you. And I need to protect my mental health. My therapist says I can't take on other people's problems right now. But I'll send you good vibes, okay? And maybe some crystals. Good vibes and crystals. For stage 3 breast cancer. That night, I sat in my apartment, the same one-bedroom place I'd called home for 4 years, and realized I was completely alone. Not just physically, but emotionally. The people who were supposed to rally around me, who were supposed to drop everything and be there, had essentially told me to handle it myself. But here's what my family didn't know about me, what they'd never bothered to learn in all my years of independence. I worked in healthcare administration for one of the largest insurance networks in the state. And not just any position. I was the Senior Director of Policy Review and Claims Authorization for Morrison Healthcare Solutions. What did that mean exactly? It meant that when insurance companies needed to approve or deny expensive treatments, when they needed someone to review complex medical cases, when they needed an expert to determine coverage for major procedures, they came to me. It also meant I had access to every insurance database in our network. I could see who was covered under which plans, what their coverage limits were, what procedures they'd had approved or denied, and most importantly, I could influence those decisions. The irony wasn't lost on me that the daughter they'd abandoned during her medical crisis was the same person who controlled medical coverage for thousands of people in our state. Including, as I was about to discover, my own family. 2 weeks later, I started chemotherapy. I'll spare you the graphic details, but imagine the worst flu you've ever had, multiply it by 10, and stretch it out over 6 months. The fatigue wasn't just tiredness, it was like my bones were made of lead. The nausea was constant, a rolling wave that never quite broke. And the hair loss? That was almost worse than the physical pain. I lost my long, dark hair in clumps. First in the shower, then on my pillow, then just running my fingers through what was left. By week 3, I shaved it all off and bought a collection of colorful scarves and wigs. Through all of this, my family's support was non-existent. My mother called once a week, usually to complain about her own problems. My arthritis is acting up, she'd say, or your father's been impossible to live with. Never once did she ask how I was handling the chemo, if I needed anything, or if she could come visit. My father sent exactly 2 text messages during my entire treatment. The first one said, "Hope you're hanging in there, kiddo." The second, 3 months later, "How's the cancer thing going?" The cancer thing. Like it was a hobby I'd picked up. Megan was radio silent except for the occasional Instagram story tag and some inspirational post about sending healing energy to loved ones. She never called, never texted, never acknowledged that her sister was fighting for her life. But the universe, as they say, has a sense of humor. 4 months into my treatment, just as I was starting to regain some strength, my work phone rang with a call that would change everything. It was my assistant, Jessica. "Zoe, I've got a complex case that needs your review. Major surgery authorization, family of 4, significant medical history. The attending physician is requesting approval for some pretty expensive procedures. Send me the files, I said, settling into my desk chair. Even during treatment, I'd been working part-time from home. My job was one of the few stable things in my life, and the mental stimulation actually helped distract from the physical misery. The files came through, and I opened them routinely. Just another case, just another family needing medical coverage. Until I saw the names. Frank Martinez, age 58. Patricia Martinez, age 56. Megan Martinez, age 26. My family. I stared at the screen for a full minute, convinced I was hallucinating from the chemo drugs. But no, there they were. My father needed back surgery, the back problems he'd mentioned when I told him about my cancer. My mother required a cardiac catheterization for chest pains. And Megan? Megan needed surgery to repair a deviated septum, what the notes euphemistically called cosmetic rhinoplasty with functional component. A nose job. My sister needed a nose job. The total cost for all 3 procedures? $847,000. I sat back in my chair, a smile spreading across my face for the first time in months. The same family who couldn't spare time to support me during cancer treatment now needed my professional approval for nearly $1 million in medical procedures. The delicious irony was that they had no idea who I was professionally. To them, I was just Zoe who works in healthcare somewhere. They'd never asked about my specific job, my responsibilities, or my level of authority. In their minds, I was probably some low-level clerk filing paperwork. But I wasn't just any healthcare worker. I was the senior director of policy review. When insurance companies needed someone to approve high-cost, complex cases, especially cases that fell into gray areas or required special consideration, they came to me. My word was literally the final say on coverage for cases like these. I had the power to approve or deny every single one of their procedures. The files showed that their primary care physicians had already submitted the initial requests. My father's back surgery was classified as urgent but not emergent, meaning it was causing significant pain and mobility issues but wasn't immediately life-threatening. My mother's cardiac procedure was listed as preventive but medically necessary based on her family history and recent symptoms. And Megan's surgery? Well, that was the interesting one. Her ENT had written a detailed justification about breathing difficulties and chronic sinusitis, but the photos and additional notes made it clear this was primarily cosmetic. The functional component was minimal at best. In normal circumstances, I would have approved the medical portions and denied the cosmetic aspects. But these weren't normal circumstances. I picked up my phone and called Jessica back. Hey, I need you to flag the Martinez family case as requiring extended review. Put a hold on all authorizations pending additional documentation. How long should I tell them the hold will be? I looked at my calendar, noting my next chemo appointment. Let's say, 6 weeks. I need comprehensive medical histories, second opinions, and detailed cost-benefit analyses for all 3 procedures. 6 weeks? That's unusual for these types of cases. It's a complex family situation with multiple high-cost procedures. I want to be thorough. What I didn't tell Jessica was that 6 weeks would put us right at the end of my chemotherapy treatment. Right around the time when I'd be feeling well enough to truly enjoy what was about to unfold. That evening, as if summoned by some cosmic force, my phone rang. It was my mother. Zoe, honey, how are you feeling? The sudden concern in her voice was jarring. In 4 months of cancer treatment, she'd never asked how I was feeling with that particular tone. I'm managing, Mom. The chemo's been rough, but I'm getting through it. That's wonderful, sweetheart. You're so strong. Listen, I wanted to let you know that your father and I might need some medical procedures soon. Nothing serious, just some routine things. But you know how insurance can be. Ah, there it was. The real reason for the call. What kind of procedures? Oh, your father's back has been killing him. The doctor wants to do some kind of surgery. And I've been having some chest pains, so they want to do some tests on my heart. You know how doctors like to order expensive tests. That sounds serious, Mom. I hope everything works out with your insurance. Well, that's actually why I'm calling. You work in healthcare, right? Do you know anything about insurance approvals? I almost laughed out loud. I know a little bit about it. Why? Could you maybe look into our case? See if there's anything you can do to help move things along? We've been waiting weeks for approval, and your father's in so much pain. The same woman who couldn't find time to visit me during cancer treatment was now asking me to use my professional connections to help her family get medical coverage. I'll see what I can do, I said sweetly. What insurance company are you with? Morrison Healthcare Solutions. Do you know them? I looked around my home office, at the Morrison Healthcare Solutions logo on my laptop, at my employee ID badge sitting on my desk, at the company awards on my wall. I've heard of them, I said. I'll make some calls. 3 days later, Megan called. This was shocking in itself. She hadn't called me once during my cancer treatment. Zoe. Oh my God, I'm so glad you answered. I need your help with something. What's wrong, Megan? So, I've been having these horrible breathing problems, and my doctor says I need surgery. But my insurance is being such a pain about approving it. Mom said you might be able to help. What kind of surgery? It's like a deviated septum thing. But it's also going to fix the shape of my nose because the breathing problems are related to how it looks, you know? It's totally medical. A deviated septum that required cosmetic rhinoplasty. Sure. That sounds really difficult, Megan. You must be struggling with the breathing issues. Oh my God, yes. It's been so hard. Especially during my yoga classes and when I'm trying to get good selfies for Instagram. The lighting has to be perfect to hide how crooked my nose looks, and that's actually connected to the breathing thing. The breathing thing that affected her Instagram lighting. Right. I'll see what I can find out about your case, I promised. You're the best sister ever. I knew you'd help. Oh, and I'm sorry I haven't called during your whole cancer situation. I've been so busy with work and my wellness journey. But you're basically done with treatment now, right? So it all worked out. It all worked out. 4 months of hell, and it all worked out. After I hung up, I sat in my living room, the same living room where I'd spent countless hours recovering from chemo, often doubled over with nausea, completely alone, and I realized something profound. My family had shown me exactly who they were when I was at my lowest point. They'd made their priorities crystal clear. Now it was time to show them who I was. I spent the next 2 weeks researching their cases thoroughly. Not because I owed them anything, but because I wanted to understand exactly what they were asking for and what it would mean to deny them. My father's back surgery was indeed necessary. His MRI showed significant spinal stenosis and herniated discs. Without surgery, he'd be looking at chronic pain and potentially permanent mobility issues. The procedure was expensive but medically justified. My mother's cardiac situation was more complex. Her EKG showed some irregularities, and her family history included heart disease. The cardiac catheterization was recommended as a diagnostic tool and potentially therapeutic if they found blockages. It was the kind of procedure that could save her life if she had significant coronary artery disease. Megan's surgery was exactly what I'd suspected. A nose job disguised as medical necessity. Yes, she had a slightly deviated septum, but it was minor and definitely not causing the breathing issues she claimed. The before and after photos her surgeon had included in the file made it clear this was primarily cosmetic enhancement. Normally, I would have approved my parents' procedures without hesitation and partially approved Megan's, the medical portion only. But this wasn't a normal situation. These people had abandoned me during the most frightening, painful period of my life. They'd treated my cancer diagnosis as an inconvenience, my need for support as a burden, and my recovery as something that worked out on its own. Now they needed something from the healthcare system, and by pure cosmic irony, they needed it from me. I made my decision. On a Thursday morning in late July, just 2 weeks after my final chemotherapy session, I submitted my authorization decisions for the Martinez family cases. Frank Martinez, denied. Reason: insufficient documentation of conservative treatment attempts. Patient must complete 6 months of physical therapy and pain management before surgical intervention will be considered. Patricia Martinez, denied. Reason: diagnostic procedure not warranted based on current symptom presentation. Patient should pursue less invasive cardiac screening options first. Megan Martinez, denied. Reason: cosmetic procedure not covered under policy guidelines. No medical necessity established for surgical intervention. I hit submit and leaned back in my chair, feeling a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in months. Not just because of the denials, but because of what would happen next. The phone call started that afternoon. "Zoe, honey, we got some bad news from the insurance company." It was my mother, and she sounded panicked. "They denied your father's surgery. Can you believe it? He's in so much pain, and they just denied it." "That's terrible, Mom." "What reason did they give?" "Something about needing to try physical therapy first." "But he's already been in pain for months. How is physical therapy going to help?" "Insurance companies can be really strict about following treatment protocols," I said sympathetically. "Did they say how long he has to do physical therapy?" 6 months. 6 months of suffering when he could just have the surgery now. "Zoe, you work in healthcare. Can't you do something?" "I can try to make some calls, but these decisions are usually made by senior-level administrators. It's not like I can just override their policies." "Please, Zoe. Your father is really struggling." The same father who'd called my cancer the cancer thing and suggested it was the universe telling me to slow down. "I'll see what I can do," I said. An hour later, my phone rang again. Megan, sobbing. "Zoe, they denied my surgery. They said it's cosmetic, but it's totally medical. I can barely breathe." "That's awful, Megan. I'm so sorry. Can't you call them? Use your connections or whatever? This is ruining my life. I already told everyone I was getting it done, and now I look like a liar." The same sister who'd been too busy protecting her mental health to support me during cancer treatment was now having her life ruined by a denied nose job. These things are really complicated, Megan. The people who make these decisions are way above my pay grade. But you said you'd help. And I'm trying. But sometimes the system is bigger than any one person's influence. She hung up on me. The best call came that evening. My mother again, but this time she had news about her own denial. "Zoe, they denied my heart procedure too. They're saying I need to do some other tests first, less expensive ones. But what if I have a heart attack while I'm waiting for their approval?" "Mom, that sounds really scary. You must be terrified." "I am. I don't know what to do. We can't afford to pay for these procedures ourselves. Your father's been looking into taking out a second mortgage on the house. A second mortgage. For the same people who couldn't spare a weekend to help their daughter through chemotherapy. Have you considered appealing the decisions? I asked innocently. How do we do that? Usually you have to write letters explaining your situation, get additional documentation from your doctors, maybe even get independent medical opinions. It can take months. Months? Zoe, we don't have months. The same urgency they couldn't muster when I was diagnosed with cancer. Over the next few weeks, my family's situation became increasingly desperate. My father's pain was getting worse, limiting his ability to work. My mother's anxiety about her heart was affecting her sleep and daily activities. And Megan? Megan was having what she called a mental health crisis over her denied nose job. They called me constantly, begging for help, asking me to use my healthcare connections to expedite their cases. Each conversation was a masterclass in irony. Zoe, family is supposed to support each other, my mother said during one particularly emotional call. We need you to be there for us. Family is supposed to support each other. Where was that philosophy when I was losing my hair and throwing up from chemo? I'm doing everything I can, Mom. But these are really complex cases. Can't you just call someone? Pull some strings? Pull some strings. If only she knew that I wasn't pulling strings, I was the string. The breaking point came in mid-August. I was at home, finally starting to feel human again after finishing treatment, when my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw all three of them standing on my porch, my parents and Megan, looking like a desperate delegation. I opened the door, and my mother immediately started crying. Zoe, we need to talk. Can we come in? I let them into my living room, the same living room where I'd spent months recovering alone, and watched as they arranged themselves on my couch like supplicants approaching a throne. Sweetheart, my father began, we're in real trouble with these insurance denials. My back is getting worse every day, your mother is having panic attacks about her heart, and Megan. I'm having breathing emergencies. Megan interrupted. Like, actual medical emergencies. Medical emergencies that somehow allowed her to maintain her yoga schedule and social media presence, but I didn't point that out. We know you work in healthcare, my mother continued, and we know you must have connections, people you can talk to. We're begging you to help us. Begging. The same people who couldn't be bothered to visit me during cancer treatment were now begging for my help. I looked at them sitting in my living room, and I saw them clearly for the first time in my life. Not as my family, but as people who had shown me exactly what I meant to them when I needed them most. You want me to help you, I said slowly, with your medical insurance problems. Yes, they said in unison. You want me to use my professional connections to help you get coverage for expensive procedures. Exactly. The same way you used your familial connections to help me during cancer treatment? The silence was deafening. My father cleared his throat. Zoe, that's different. You're strong, you handled it fine on your own. I handled it alone because I had to, not because I wanted to. But you're better now, Megan said. Everything worked out. Everything worked out, I repeated. Do you know what everything working out looked like, Megan? She shook her head. It looked like me sitting on my bathroom floor at 3 a.m., too weak to stand up, throwing up from chemo, completely alone. It looked like me driving myself to treatment every 2 weeks because I had no one to take me. It looked like me losing 30 pounds because I was too nauseous to eat and had no one to help me manage my nutrition. My mother started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. It looked like me shaving my head in my bathroom mirror by myself because my hair was falling out in clumps and I couldn't bear to ask anyone for help anymore. It looked like me crying myself to sleep wondering if my own family would even come to my funeral if the treatment didn't work. The room was completely silent now. But you're right, Megan. Everything worked out. I survived cancer without any of you. And now you need something from me. Zoe, my father said quietly, we know we weren't, we could have been more supportive. Could have been more supportive? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Dad, when I told you I had cancer, you said maybe it was the universe telling me to slow down. Mom, you asked if I could hire someone to help me instead of you coming to stay. And Megan, you said my cancer was too heavy for your spiritual journey. Megan had the grace to look ashamed, but my parents were still trying to rationalize. We thought you wanted to handle it yourself, my mother said weakly. You've always been so independent. Independent and abandoned aren't the same thing, Mom. I stood up and walked to my mantel, where I kept my medical binders, all the documentation from my treatment that I'd organized obsessively as a way to maintain some control during the chaos. Do you want to know what I learned during my cancer treatment? I asked, pulling out one of the binders. I learned that I'm stronger than I ever imagined. I learned that I can survive anything, even without the people I thought I could count on. And I learned something very interesting about my job. I opened the binder and pulled out my business cards, my employee ID, and a letter from my company commending my work during my treatment. I learned that I'm not just someone who works in healthcare somewhere. I'm the Senior Director of Policy Review and Claims Authorization for Morrison Healthcare Solutions. I watched their faces as the words sank in. I'm the person who reviews complex medical cases and makes final decisions on coverage authorization. I'm the person insurance companies call when they need someone to approve or deny expensive procedures. My father's face went white. Zoe, you don't mean. I mean that when Morrison Healthcare Solutions received requests for authorization for Frank Martinez's back surgery, Patricia Martinez's cardiac catheterization, and Megan Martinez's rhinoplasty, those requests came to my desk. Megan gasped. You're the one who denied us? I'm the one who reviewed your cases according to standard medical protocols and insurance guidelines. But we're your family, my mother cried. Exactly, I said. You're my family. The same family who abandoned me when I needed you most. The same family who treated my cancer diagnosis as an inconvenience and my recovery as something that worked out without your help. I sat back down, facing them. So here's what's going to happen. You have the right to appeal these decisions, just like any other insurance policy holder. You can submit additional documentation, get second opinions, and work through the proper channels. Zoe, please, my father begged. Just approve the procedures. We'll do anything. Anything? I asked. Would you visit your daughter during cancer treatment? Would you drive her to chemo appointments? Would you hold her hair back while she threw up? Would you sit with her when she was scared and alone? We'll make it up to you, my mother promised. We'll be better. The time to be better was 6 months ago when I was diagnosed. Not now when you need something from me. I stood up again, signaling that this conversation was over. You taught me something valuable during my cancer treatment. You taught me that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about showing up when someone needs you. It's about putting someone else's needs before your own convenience. It's about love in action, not just in word. I walked toward the door. And you taught me that I don't need people in my life who only value me when I can do something for them. So you're just going to let us suffer? Megan asked, tears streaming down her face. Because we weren't perfect during your treatment? I'm going to treat you exactly the way you treated me, I said. Like you're capable of handling your problems on your own. They left that night, and I haven't seen them since. But the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Jessica at work. "Zoe, I've got an update on that Martinez family case. They've submitted appeals for all 3 procedures, and they've included some interesting documentation." "What kind of documentation?" "Letters from family members vouching for their medical necessity and financial hardship. Character references, church testimonials, even a letter from their neighbor about how much pain Frank is in. And the appeals committee wants to know if you have any additional insights into the cases since you've been handling them." I thought about it for a moment. The appeals process was legitimate, and they had followed proper procedures. My personal feelings weren't supposed to factor into medical necessity determinations. But then I remembered something Dr. Chen had told me during my treatment: "Zoe, healing isn't just about medicine. It's about having people who care about you, who support you through the process. Patients with strong support systems have better outcomes." I'd survived cancer without that support system. I'd healed alone. But my family was asking for healing they couldn't afford, support they couldn't provide for themselves. "Jessica, schedule the appeals for standard review. Full committee evaluation, medical necessity only." "You're not going to handle them personally?" "No. I think it's time for some objectivity." 3 weeks later, the appeals committee made their decisions. My father's surgery was approved after he completed the required physical therapy and pain management protocol. The committee found that his case met medical necessity criteria for surgical intervention. My mother's cardiac procedure was approved after she completed the preliminary testing, which actually revealed some significant issues that needed immediate attention. The committee potentially saved her life by requiring the additional diagnostics first. Megan's surgery was partially approved. The medical portion, correcting the deviated septum, was covered. The cosmetic portions were not. She ended up having the procedure done, paying out of pocket for the aesthetic improvements. All 3 of them recovered well from their procedures. I never heard from any of them about the outcomes. No thank you calls, no updates on their health, no acknowledgement that the system had worked exactly as it was designed to. But I heard through mutual family friends that they'd all made full recoveries. And I was genuinely glad for that. 6 months later, I got a call from my Aunt Grace, my mother's sister, whom I'd always liked. "Zoe, honey, I hope you don't mind me calling. I heard about what happened with your parents and the insurance situation." "It's fine, Aunt Grace. Water under the bridge. I also heard about your cancer treatment, and how they weren't there for you." I didn't respond, not sure where this was going. "I want you to know that not all of us knew what was happening. If I had known you were going through treatment alone, I would have been there." "I appreciate that. And I want you to know that what you did, with the insurance decisions, I think you handled it with more grace than they deserved." "What do you mean?" "You could have denied them permanently out of spite. But you didn't. You made them work for it, follow the proper procedures, prove medical necessity. That's not revenge, Zoe. That's justice." After we hung up, I thought about what she'd said. Justice versus revenge. Revenge would have been denying their claims permanently, regardless of medical necessity. Revenge would have been using my position to hurt them the way they'd hurt me. Justice was treating them like any other insurance policy holders. Making them follow the same procedures, meet the same criteria, work through the same system that thousands of other patients navigate every day. Justice was giving them exactly what they'd given me, the opportunity to handle their problems on their own, with the same level of support they'd provided during my crisis. The difference was that they had each other, and they had the appeals process, and they had the financial resources to pursue treatment even when initially denied. I'd had none of those things during my cancer treatment, and I'd survived anyway. Today, I'm cancer-free. It's been 18 months since my last treatment, and my prognosis is excellent. I've gotten promotions at work, recognition for my professionalism during a difficult personal time, and the respect of colleagues who knew what I was going through. I've also built a chosen family of friends and colleagues who show up when I need them, who celebrate my victories and support me through challenges. People who understand that love is a verb, not just a noun. My biological family and I exist in a state of mutual indifference now. We don't fight, we don't reconcile, we simply don't engage. I'm not invited to family gatherings, and I don't extend invitations in return. It's not hostile, it's just nothing. And I'm at peace with that. Because I learned something invaluable during my cancer treatment, I don't need people who only value me when I'm useful to them. I don't need relationships based on obligation rather than genuine care. And I don't need to set myself on fire to keep other people warm. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply step away from people who don't appreciate your presence and build a life where you're celebrated, not tolerated. The most satisfying part of this entire story wasn't denying their insurance claims. It wasn't watching them scramble to appeal the decisions or panic about their medical bills. The most satisfying part was realizing that I had built a life so full and meaningful that their absence didn't diminish it. That I had become someone so strong and independent that their approval was no longer necessary for my happiness. They taught me that I didn't need them, and I learned the lesson well. Cancer taught me that I'm stronger than I ever imagined. But my family taught me something equally valuable, that sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones who show you exactly who you are and what you're capable of achieving on your own. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? Have you ever been abandoned by people who later needed your help? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to put yourself first sometimes. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about setting boundaries, finding strength, and building the life you deserve.